Looks like an eye, like an evil eye.
Like an eye. I don't see it. What if I just shut off my video?
I think right where it's your camera, your microphone, and then share your screen, and
Oh, I
then
see.
there's like an eye. Yeah.
Nope, don't have it.
Okay. No problem. I think it might be better if you turn it back on, unless that's up to you.
Maybe Laura did it, but it's okay. I can just turn on when it's my turn. So whenever you're ready to go.
Okay. I know we're
Happy
live,
to
but do
turn
we know
on.
people?
Welcome,
No, but
everyone. We are getting started in a few minutes. People are rolling in. ECs, feel free to turn on your camera. That was on me, my bad. But this is really exciting.
Yay, happy to be here.
welcome everyone. Happy Monday. We're gonna get started in a couple of minutes. We're just gonna let people roll in. But as you're coming in, if you can put in the chat, tell us where you're from, where are you joining us from, what school do you belong to? We want to know where y'all are from. I know, because we're in a virtual setting, we have the flexibility to do this, to extend our invitation to mostly everyone from anywhere. So, definitely if you're from in another country right now, we would love to hear that. So let us know where you are.
Guatemala, I love it.
Guatemala, that's awesome. Hello, hello. New Haven, Connecticut. Well, I'm in Massachusetts. I'm actually in Lynn.
And I am representing Lawrence, Mass. Some Peruvians in the house.
Nice, nice. Just a few more minutes and we'll get started. I know we're just happy to actually be using a new platform. I know it's a little bit, it's a new tool, a little bit more intuitive, but I'm sure that everyone will enjoy it as it will be more interactive for the users as well. From Mexico, nice.
New York in the house.
All right, so we'll get started just to make sure we have enough to cover everything we have today. So welcome to ALPFA Boston, 2021 Virtual Student Summit, Thriving in Times of Change. I'm extremely excited to be here with you guys. I've been waiting for this day for a long time, and we've been planning this for a while, so I'm very happy to be here. This is something that normally we will do in person, but unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we cannot do it in person. However, I'm very happy that we're doing it virtual because we can actually get to many more of you wherever you are, different parts of the state or even other countries. So we're very happy to be here with you, and we're so happy that you're here with us as well. So as you know, obviously the pandemic has taken, a big toll on our day-to-day activities. Anywhere from, working from home, wearing a mask when you go outside, being in lockdowns, being kept from seeing our families. Those are so many different examples. You guys are students, going to class, wearing a mask, taking a lot of classes from home, not being able to leave your home state. There's so many different aspects that the pandemic has actually changed our day-to-day activities. So we all know that. We all have been impacted by it. our families have been impacted by it. So we all have that in common, But it is also have a crystal ball to know how the future, change. We cannot predict the future, but we do know one thing is that not everything will go back to normal. There's a lot of things that will remain change after that pandemic. This includes the way businesses work, the way corporations run business, and operate day-to-day activities. So we do need to change with them to stay competitive as well. So change is inevitable, but we here at Alpha Boston are committed to help in any way possible to facilitate that transition. Alpha Boston Student Affairs Committee is excited to bring you this year's Virtual Student Summit that is designed to educate, motivate, and empower students to think outside of the box to make themselves more competitive and marketable. My name is Carlos Quintanilla, and I am the Director of Student Affairs for Alpha Boston. This year's summit will feature live sessions that will highlight new hiring strategies from organizations in today's virtual atmosphere. We're going to guide attendees on how to build relationships and create new networks, and also provide key tools that will help students expand their knowledge, skills, and abilities in order to thrive in their academics and also career professions. Through these today, actually Monday and Wednesday, 2-day program, students will learn best practices to reaching their full potential, as well as actionable steps that can be taken to stay more competitive, build confidence, and set themselves apart from others. Additionally, we will explore ways to create and maintain financial wealth and stability for future economic and financial independence. And also, we will have that component of networking at the end of Wednesday. So if you want to chat with other people, do a little bit more networking, for sure, stay tuned. So next slide, please. Awesome. But before we get diving into this amazing summit, we're for all of you guys, if you're new to Alpha in general, I want to give you a quick rundown of who we are, what we do, and if you obviously hopefully members as well. Here's a quick agenda of what we're going to go through right now. We'll talk about Alpha, the national overview. We're going to go into the Boston statistics and a little bit more about what we're doing, the work that we're doing here at Student Affairs. We're going to have a few words from our president, Isis Ortiz. We're going to take a deeper dive into what Student Summit is doing. And then we're going to talk about all the different sessions that we're going to have during this 2-day summit. Next slide, please. Our vision is to empower, develop Latinx students as leaders of character for the nation in every sector of the global economy. Our mission is to provide opportunities for career development, community engagement, and networking for the Latinx community in the New England area that will propel their careers and livelihoods. And I do add New England because we are Alpha Boston. We have many different chapters in many different states. However, when it comes to student affairs, we do try to cover all of the New England area. So if you're a student within the New England area, we will be the chapter you'll be contacting. Next, please. So quick overview. At the national level, we are about 95,000 active members, 44 professional chapters, 157 student chapters. Their focus is on women leadership development through a program called Women of Alpha, and they also have a recent program within the last few years that is the 50 most powerful Latinas. That is actually a great allocate to have in your career. Also, they do a lot of work with student engagement, such as scholarships, fellowships. They post a lot of jobs, but it's a great way for you to get involved at the national level with other corporate partners. Here at the local level in Alpha Boston, we're about 8,000 active members, 20 plus corporate partners, 7 student chapters. And we cover so many different committees that we think are relevant that can help our community, our Latinx community, to help them propel into the next steps in their career. And we have many different committees such as financial literacy, entrepreneurship, technology. We also do a lot of women leadership through Women of Alpha. We also have a committee on proud LGBTQ plus initiatives. And we also have a student affairs and a few others. And now let's talk about our student affairs, the work that we're doing here. So we have about 2,100 members, student members. We have on the premium area, we have about 155 members, which I'll talk to you about what a premium membership means. We have 7 student chapters. Again, my name is Carlos Quintanilla, and I am the Director of Student Affairs. So you can always reach out to me if you have any questions related to student initiatives in the Boston area. We also provide a lot of scholarship opportunities at the local level for those who are our members. And just to reiterate what some of our student chapters are: Bentley University, Boston University, Brandeis University, Bryant University, Harvard University. If you belong to any of those universities as an undergrad, please reach out to us. That way we can also, introduce you to who's running these different committees at your local schools. And at the graduate level, we have Suffolk University. Oh, apologies. Suffolk University and Brandeis. Those are the ones at the graduate level. So again, if you're attending any of those 2 schools, let us know. We'll be more than happy to connect you with these amazing students who are doing work at the local level at these universities. And just to give you a little bit more idea of what the benefits that you can get as a pay and as a premium student member, you can definitely get some local scholarships with some of our universities. For example, we do have a partnership with Suffolk University, where you can get $10,000 off your MBA or a 10% tuition, which right now during the pandemic, it's 20% towards your tuition. We also have a plan with Cambridge College, which also provides you with 10% off any program that they might be offering. So if you're attending any of these schools, or you're planning to attend to any of these schools, definitely become a member and take advantage of these great scholarships and discounts. And here's a few background about the different types of membership. So you can definitely join as a basic member, which is just a free membership. You have access to our local student events just like this one. You have free access to a virtual convention as well, which we do once a year at the national level. You have access to professional chapters networking events, receptions, and other programs. You also will receive bi-weekly emails from the e-news about ALPFA Nationals. You can also post your resume and also do some job searching in the ALPFA Nationals platform. But if you want to get a little bit more, if you become a premium member, you can get all of that and a little bit more. You'll become eligible to ALPFA's academic scholarship, just like the ones I just mentioned. You also can join their KPMG case study competition, where you could actually gain some money as well. You also become eligible to Deloitte's tech competition at the national convention. And you get discounts to attend the annual convention once we can do this in person again. And now I want to talk to you about a little bit of what we're doing here at ALPFA Boston Student Affairs. At the beginning, this is my first year being the director of this committee, so there were a few things that I definitely wanted to accomplish. But one of them was to collaborate with our current student chapters to come up with events, be a resource for them, help them increase their memberships. But that's something that I definitely wanted to do, so that way they can increase their visibility at their campus, but also outside of the campus. So we've been able to work with them on that. Also, we want to increase our number of student chapters. So if you are going to a certain university in the New England area that they don't have a student chapter, please reach out to me. We can work together, and we'll definitely get one started at your local university. We also want to create a sense of community. So we have built a LinkedIn student group. This is a group for students, from students for students. So this is the barcode right here. So if you actually want to join our LinkedIn, take out your phones. You can just take a picture of that, and you can join our LinkedIn group. At the same time, what we want to do is just share resources and opportunities for all of our student members. So what we've done is we have a monthly newsletter that goes out to all of our student population about opportunities, events that are happening from ALPFA, but also other organizations around the area. We also want to create career development opportunities for all of you guys. This is actually one of them. This is our very first event of the year, and what a big event, what a great way to start. But we definitely want to put so many other ones out there. So if you tell us exactly what type of events you want to hear, what type of events you want to see, I'm all ears. We're definitely here for you, and we want to put them out there. We also want to increase networking, have a little bit more of those opportunities. We'll have some of those on Wednesday as well. Hopefully we can do a career fair as well. That way students can have opportunities to get jobs and internships, and overall just increase our membership and have more students benefit from what we can offer. And obviously all of this is just a lot of work doing alone. So I just want to give a quick shout out to the amazing team that is behind the scenes that is helping me put all of this together. Just to quickly, you will definitely see them around. I'm moderating a few of the sessions coming up, but I just want to give a quick, shout out, round of applause to all of them, because the work that they do for to help me and also for the community is just amazing. Anywhere from sending our newsletters, creating content, all the amazing graphics you have been seeing throughout our promotion, and also behind the scenes, managing and running all of this technology right now. So thank you guys for all the work that you do. So we appreciate that. And now, just to give us a little bit more an idea of the type of work that we're doing here at Boston, I would like to introduce our fearless leader, Isis Ortiz, our ALPFA Boston president.
Hi, yes, thank you, Carlos. Thanks for that introduction, and welcome you all to tonight to ALPFA Boston's 2021 Student Summit. I'm really excited that you all decided to join us for this two-day program dedicated entirely to you. I will start by saying that I strongly believe you are in the right place at the right time. For me, it was about 10 years ago that I actually sat in a very similar seat as you, maybe not a virtual seat, right? Because there was no COVID. At least it wasn't a thought back then. But certainly in a place where I was eager to enter the real world, and I wanted to meet other like-minded Latinos, and of course, land the perfect job, right? Which is what we're looking to do once we're done with our studies. Like some of you, I joined ALPFA Boston as a student member during my graduate studies. And so I feel like I am a testament of the amazing things that ALPFA can do for you as a Latinx professional. I can say with great confidence that ALPFA was key in my development as a professional and as a leader within the community today. And no bigger evidence of that is, the fact that I stand here today as a president for the Boston chapter of the largest Latinx professional association in the country. With that said, if you are currently not an ALPFA member, I certainly encourage you to become one. I know Carlos just talked a little bit about the benefits of being a Platinum student member, and I certainly encourage you to grow this network of over 8,000 professional Latinos just in this area, right, and over 95,000 across the country. Over the next couple of days, you will gain some valuable information, some insights, and some takeaways that will be vital as you all navigate your academics and you prepare to enter the workforce, especially in today's current environment, right? Which it's been tough, and I'd like to think that it's certainly been tough on particularly COVID, right, on the Latinx population and Latinx students. You'll also learn how to interview in a virtual setting, which is increasingly important. You'll get some tips for branding yourself and perfecting your elevator pitch, particularly, again, post-COVID world. And you'll learn ways to create wealth while also managing those student loans, which we all know are a pain. And you'll also find ways to balance your work life. And then finally, you'll find out about the benefits of joining a board like ALPFA Boston. Some of you are early in your college careers, others are graduating this year and entering the workforce or continuing your studies. And some of you are actually currently in grad school, right? So wherever you are in your journey, I guess I want to offer just a couple of pieces of advice. First things first, this is your journey, right? I encourage you to discover yourself as you experience life and to really enjoy the process. Take the time to really learn about yourself. The purpose is to grow as a human, to discover what you're good at, what you love to do and what you don't like to do. And it's important for you to really understand your why. And when you know your why, you really lead with conviction and you are unapologetically yourself, right? So, and in doing so, you'll see that you'll really lead a much happier and a much more purposeful life. Second, it's okay to make mistakes. Be honest about those mistakes, and be certainly honest about your weaknesses, right? Hey, if you screw up, own up to it. Ask all the questions. Maintain your intellectual curiosity. But importantly, remember that any failure is really an opportunity to learn, and that your mistakes are lessons that will ultimately shape who you will become as a person. Pay attention when things go well, but pay extra attention when they don't. And watch your reaction and the reaction of those around you. You ultimately want to build relationships with the people who face problems by really trying to be their solution. That really brings me to my last piece of advice. And that is to network. And I'm really actually saying that like in capital letters. And some of you are probably looking at me and rolling your eyes right now because just the word networking sounds like a burden in itself. But I really do believe, and the reality is that your biggest asset is your network. What you know and how good you are at doing it really only gets you so far. I have found that there's true value in making personal connections that can, prove to be essential to your professional career. Your network can provide an avenue to exchange ideas. The more you know, the more, knowledge you have access to. And then growing your network also makes you more noticeable because it often leads to more visibility, right? And by an extension of that, your network and connections can also be a conduit for new opportunities. For me, that has actually come in the form of new job opportunities. As a matter of fact, and I actually talk about this often, right? I value my network so much, and I've out of all the jobs that I have had throughout my professional career, with the exception of one, I have gotten all of them through someone from within my network, right? Some connection that I knew and someone who was part of that circle. And that's why I also like to say that it's really important that in your network, you have your mentors and your champions, right? The people who are looking out for you, the people who are giving you constructive feedback, who are being honest with you, and who really want to see you succeed, right? And even if that's by, giving you some of that advice that you didn't necessarily don't want to hear. If nothing else, a network can be an extra resource library, right? I mentioned the extra knowledge that you get out of that. It can help you build your self-confidence. It certainly helped me build my self-confidence, right? Just having people around you who can vouch for your abilities and your skills, right? And that can tell you that, you're good at what you do. And it also helps you develop long-lasting relationships, right? Which are valuable, especially today. So I'm very proud that you guys are here today, right? Because you being here already shows that you've taken that first step to building your personal network by becoming part of ALPFA Boston. And just like ALPFA played a significant role in my life 10 years ago, and it still continues to do so today, I have no doubt that, this organization can play that very similar role for you. We're here to help you. I know Carlos mentioned this, and I will reiterate that. We're here to help you navigate through your academic and your professional journeys. From career and leadership development to networking opportunities, you'll find that we really, truly do embody the meaning of hashtag Alfamilia. So thank you all for being here. I know you guys have really busy schedules, and maybe not. Maybe this is just an excuse to get away from studying, which I'll take. But, thank you for being with us tonight. And I really do look forward to all the contributions that I know you guys will make to this board and to this network at large. So thank you again for being here. And if you guys have ever any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. And I hope that you all will connect with me on LinkedIn. That's all from me, Carlos. I'll give it back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Isis, for your words of wisdom and advices. I just want to quickly say that, as I'm reading the chat, feel like we are a Latinx organization. We are trying to help our community, as we definitely see how they struggle over time. And we ourselves have seen those struggles, we'll live those struggles, so we definitely want to provide resources for all the students, at the different levels. Also, any professionals, leadership skills that they can learn from such organization. But this doesn't mean that we're inclusive just to the Latinx community. We're definitely exclusive. Anyone who wants to be part of the Alfamilia can be part of it. We often understand that there are no other resources, but what we're here for is to provide resources for first generation students, anyone who has struggled that can actually learn something from it. We are here for you too. We welcome everyone, and it's actually an added value. At the same time, you can also be an ally and actually help us expand the word to others. So the more the merrier. So for sure, you definitely belong here. And just to continue, also, I know Isis had mentioned, we definitely appreciate you guys being here. I know that, we ended up doing this summit towards, beginning of May and June, which I know that a bunch of students have finished their semester or taken finals during this time. So thank you for being here. I do want to say congratulations on finishing another semester of school. For those who are graduating, also congratulations, on your upcoming graduation. We're very excited for you, and I hope that you stay connected with us after you have graduated at the professional level too. And although this summit we're targeting students as a whole, as it comes from student affairs. However, these are sessions that everyone in any sector, in any industry, at any level can benefit from. We're going to talk about the idea from students' perspective, from their point of view, but these are topics good that anyone can benefit from. So, if you feel like, hey, the topic resonates with anything that you want to accomplish, you want to gain insights on, definitely, join those sessions. So now I want to explain quickly about how our sessions are going to work. So if you can just click next slide, please. So right now we're on on a session. This is the opening remarks. So in order to go to the next one, you'll go back to our homepage, and then you'll click on our first session, which is interviewing in a virtual setting. There are definitely times in those sessions, so those sessions will only open at that specific time. Each session will last about 45 minutes long. We do have a break in between, just like today, there will be a break from 6:15 to 6:30. However, if you don't want to take that break, you want to just hang out on the lounge, I'll be around. So if you want to ask questions, you want to connect with me, I'll be there so we can exchange any information and actually catch up later. So for sure, stick around. But then we're going to have two more sessions afterwards, starting at 6:30, one right after the other. And at 8 o'clock, we're just going to end day one with that last session, just ending it. And then we're going to come back on Wednesday, same time, 5 o'clock. We have an amazing keynote speaker, so you definitely don't want to miss the message and the advices that he can provide to all of you guys. And that will be from 5 to 5:30. And then same thing, we're going to have one session, a break, two more sessions at the end, and we're going to have a few closing remarks. So, pretty self-explanatory. So, and I know Isis quickly talked about, the different sessions that we're gonna be talking about, but I just want to just quickly reiterate right before we go into the session. So, next slide, please. So, day one, that is today. So, I'm happy that Harvard University will be joining us to do our session on interviewing in a virtual setting. Once again, a lot of this sessions, a lot of the way you interview now, it's going to stay virtual. So it's of great importance that you learn how to actually do this type of interview, so that way you can ace it and actually get that job that you really want. Just gonna stay like that. We all know that. Harvard knows that, so they're here for you. And then we're gonna have another session on balancing a busy life work. As you know, people tell you, join a club, work out, join a sport, get a job, take 4 classes. And then also stay sane. It's insane, how many things people ask you to do. However, this all really helps you as a professional. But how can you balance all of that and stay sane and have a great, mental health? So we're definitely going to have this great session on how to actually balance all of that and be a positive person overall. And then lastly, we're going to have our a session on online branding. Again, this is virtual, all virtual. So LinkedIn has become my best friend. It should definitely be your best friend. That's the way you present yourself to the outer world, to other people. So is your LinkedIn apart, with what others are seeing? Is it really that much marketable? Are you really setting yourself apart from others? We're going to talk about all of this, and there's a great, amazing session. And then on day 2, Wednesday, May 12th, of course, again, we're going to have our keynote speaker, just a great message. He is a coach, a life coach, a career coach. He has talked to a bunch of people. He has an amazing podcast about all of the different topics that I'm sure everyone wants to hear about. So we'll be sharing a little bit more about the work that he does, and you don't want to miss the message that he has for you. At the same time, we're going to have a session about creating wealth while managing debt. As Isis mentions, we all graduate. Now we're getting pay a bigger salary? What do we do with that money? Do we invest it in a 401k? How do we pay our debt? How do we invest in real estate? How do we, there's a lot of questions that we don't know what to do with that money now. But of course, we're going to have that conversation on how to best allocate that money. And then we're going to end with 2 more sessions. The title of this is actually benefits of joining a board. Don't get discouraged by the name. Hey, joining a board, board directors. As Isis mentions, also I can vouch for that joining a board has helped me grow tremendously as a professional. I used to be a little bit shy when I used to go to networking events, but through networking and going to all these different sessions and joining a board, I've been able to really feel comfortable in my own skin and actually inspire others, be a voice for others. And people are definitely seeing you, they're watching you. So the more comfortable you are in your own skin, they'll watch you and they say, if they can do it, I can do it. So you should definitely feel comfortable enjoying all these different sessions. At the same time, we're going to learn how to best utilize the resources that are provided by your company. Do they have an employee resource group? If they do, you should definitely join. But we're going to talk about the reasons why and how that's going to help your professional career. And lastly, you're going to have a session with me, and we're going to be able to practice your elevator pitch. So if you already have that, which I'm sure you already have done that at one point in your career, bring it with you. We're going to practice a little bit more of that in a fun and exciting way. But at the end, you're going to feel more comfortable that you have practiced it enough. And then if you have an interview coming up, you're going to ace that interview. So without further ado, let's get started. Let's get this summit started, and we're going to be starting our first our first session right now. So thank you very much for being here again, and see you on the other side.
Enjoy, everyone.
All right, welcome everyone to our first session today. We are going to start with interviewing in a virtual setting hosted by Harvard University. I am Alma Castro, and I am part of the Student Affairs Committee at ALPFA. Today, we're going to talk about how interviews have moved to a virtual setting. Preparing for it a little bit, it's going to be completely different from how you prepared for an in-person interview before. And during this workshop, our students will learn new hiring practices, how to prepare for an interview, what not to do, and things you should do to ace your interview in a virtual setting. We have speakers from Harvard University today, Brian Thibault. Brian is a senior talent acquisition consultant at Harvard. He focuses on helping clients through a comprehensive understanding of their businesses and his ability to identify talent to support and enhance diverse company cultures. We also have Amanda Sullivan today. Amanda is a recruitment coordinator in the central administration at Harvard, supporting recruitment in IT, finance, and the credit union. She's passionate about building connections, the candidate experience, and inclusive hiring. We have Angela Boudreau. She's the Associate Director for Talent Acquisition with Harvard Central Administration. Angie works with hiring groups across the university to recruit, hire, and retain key talent in the areas of information technology, finance, and banking. Dick McGinnis is also with us today. He's a longtime human resources professional with experience as an HR business partner and leading recruitment teams across a variety of industries. One of Dick's core values is finding solutions to engage all staff in fair and equitable ways. Roberto Martinez is the Senior Talent Diversity Sourcer at Harvard, where he contributes to the development and implementation of initiatives focused on increasing diversity at all levels of the organization and attracting and retaining the best talent. Eduardo Vergara is a first-generation queer Latino public health professional. He's passionate for HIV health and academia. This has brought him to the Chan School of Public Health as a research study coordinator in the Department of Epidemiology. And last but not least, we have Sarah Chambers. Sarah is currently a human resources administrator and has been with Harvard University for over 13 years. She's a new member to the Central Administration team and brings in real-life knowledge of interviewing during the pandemic while being remote. Before we get started, I want to ask everyone to just post your questions in the chat, in the question icon that you have on your right navigation menu, and use the chat for comments or any messages to interact with other attendees of the session. Brian, I believe the floor is yours, so you can get started.
Great, thank you. Alrighty. It's nice to meet everybody. We're just waiting for our presentation to load. Perfect. Thanks everybody for joining our session today. We're going to go through a series of conversations around virtual interviewing, and it's going to be focused on the pre-interview and post and a lot of the steps that it takes in the middle of the process. It is very different. We have all learned to adjust to it, and it's certainly different than when I started interviewing folks many years ago, where there weren't even necessarily application systems. It was a walk in with a resume, and now we're doing everything completely remotely virtual, which is working, but it does take steps. So let's go into the presentation. The first few slides are introductions, our bios. We're going to send this deck out to everybody that signs up to get it, so you'll get more information about each of us. And our connection emails are on there, as well as our LinkedIn connections are there for you to reach out to us. But we will send this out to everybody who reaches out to me via email, and I'll make sure you get this. Okay. Today we're going to go over the pre-interview, as I mentioned. The interview, a big piece of it, but planning ahead of the process is really important as well. And closing the interview. And as I mentioned, if you want to receive a copy of the presentation, you can email me at brian_thibault@harvard.edu. Please submit any questions you have using the questions icon to the right of your screen below the chat icon, and then your responses go in the chat. We have Alma that's going to be monitoring chat, as well as Angie Boudreau, so we can get to all your questions and comments. And we're going to start off a question that we'd like to put the response in chat. What is the interview question that you most dread? The thing that you think about every time you're going to go on a phone interview, a virtual interview, an in-person interview, and you say, I know they're going to ask me that question, and I always have a hard time answering it. And we'll talk about that. There are additional resources and information on how to apply at Harvard if you're interested in doing so at the end of the presentation. So here's some virtual interview information and trends that we've noticed, and we've certainly seen it on our end. We know that virtual hiring is here to stay. It's worked out very well for a lot of folks. We have managers at Harvard that said, I would never do virtual interviews, and now some saying, I don't know why we didn't do this in the past. It's worked out very well for the sake of time and getting onto campus and things of those nature. But also, video technology is being used by 60% of hiring managers and recruiters now. That's a big percentage. 506 companies have showed that 47% use video interviewing to shorten the hiring time frame, and 22% would consider it for interviewing candidates that aren't local, which is great, right? We have a vast talent pool across the country. Why would we, and across the globe, why would we not consider those candidates? And then this is an amazing fact that I thought was amazing. Zoom surpassed 300 million daily Zoom meetings in 2020, a 50% increase. So that tells you where the virtual setting is and where it's going to go and where it's changed to. The pre-interview is as I mentioned, it's a really big piece of this. And it's really preparing, learning about the organization, researching the organization, and the interviewers that you're going to meet with. Carlos mentioned it at the opening session. LinkedIn is the best tool for this. You can really find out about somebody, about a company, about their mission statement. Positions are often posted there. You want to go into an interview not asking a company, what do you do? Right? You want to know what they do before you apply and get to that interview. Review the job description and your qualifications. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, but you really do want to focus on making sure that the job is right for you. And if the basic qualifications and those additional qualifications and the job is not something you really feel comfortable with, or you don't think you'll be able to do it, you may get there, but, really focus on those jobs that focus on your strengths. What are your abilities? How can you be successful in that role? And do you really have what it takes to do that job? And if you do, you want to be able to talk about it. You really want to be able to talk about your experiences and your examples of experiences. You want to be able to tell stories about your related skills and abilities. Not a story that's going to be, a long, drawn-out story, but something where you can talk to somebody in a very short period of time and tell them about your successes related to something you did. Hiring managers, recruiters, talent acquisition teams, they want to know your story. They want to know about you and how you are applicable to the role, right? So when you think of that, think of the acronym PAR. Tell me about a problem that you faced. What about an action or actions that you took to resolve that problem? You personally, right? You had a problem at work, you had to solve it. How did you solve it? What were the results or the outcome? And sometimes even have some data to support that outcome. Well, I worked in a call center and we need to reduce the time that we're on the phone to solve problems, and we did so. We'll have some data for that. So it's a really good acronym to think about, PAR, and being prepared to tell your story on how your skills and abilities match up with the job description and the skills that they're looking for. Test your technology. It's really important to do. Just before this session tonight, we did a test. All of us on our team got on this platform and we tested the technology to make sure that it worked. Check your camera, your microphone, your Wi-Fi, all those things in advance. You want to be able to start off the interview on the right foot, test it with friends, family, things of that nature. Familiarize yourself with the Zoom or the technology that they're sending you. Sometimes technology you have to sign up in advance, so you don't want to be waiting till the interview time to download that app. So make sure you have all that done in advance. Make sure your laptop, tablet, and phone are fully charged. How many times have we been on a call? Wait, I got to find my cord. Oh, I got to, make sure it's ready to go. Have it plugged in all the time when you're in the interview process. Other things about the pre-interview is you want to think about all those things that are going to happen, and this word cloud is a representation of all the things that can happen and will happen. Spam filters. You didn't get the email, it went to junk mail. Voicemail set up. You only accept contact that are in your phone, so you miss all those calls. So to make sure this is a best experience for everyone, please make sure that you are dressed in the clothing you would wear if you attended in person. Okay, that you're in a quiet place, suitable location that won't be distract the interviewer. And we know in these COVID times and these interviewing times and these virtual times that that's not always possible. And if that's the case, just let the interviewer know, this is the best place I can be. You may hear some distractions from my family or cats or something of that nature. That's okay. We understand that things are going to be different for this kind of environment. But do the best you can. It's really important that you are able to hear the conversation and that the interviewer can hear your responses. Make sure you're being safe, of course, and not riding or driving or riding in a vehicle. We want you to be safe, but also you want to think about, the noise and the distractions that are going on if you're in a vehicle. So just consider those factors, okay? And then plan for first contact scenarios, and there are many of them. Some companies will send you an email and say, we're going to have you do a one-way interview, meaning that they want you to answer some questions on video while talking to the camera, nobody else, and then you're going to record that session. You're going to send it back to the company. They're going to review that and decide to send that on to the hiring manager or not. So you want to be prepared for that, making sure that you're getting those emails, making sure you're checking your spam, making sure that you're getting this information off to them quickly, make sure that your settings, again, are right for that interview scenario. Email, spam is one of the worst things that can happen. I've had it go there many times myself. It even happens at work. I get emails from systems inside Harvard that go to spam. So I'm always checking it and making sure it's there. And maybe coming from LinkedIn, maybe somebody reached out to you, found you on LinkedIn, liked your profile, sent you a message. Be aware of those things, look for those things, and be responsive to those. Usually when we respond to an email or a message, usually within 2 to 3 business days at most, right? And then phone calls, of course. That's one of the ways that you're going to get something. Somebody could call you out of the blue. You may not know the number. If you've got an application out there, don't just send it, block it. It could be somebody you want to talk to. Right? Make sure your voicemail is set up. Make sure that it's a message, outgoing message, with your name and so forth. And again, if you only have it set to receive phone calls or numbers in your contact list, you're going to miss somebody that could be your dream job. So yes, there are a lot of ways where people can reach out to you. It could be a text, it could be that call, it could be an email, it could be LinkedIn. So maybe your LinkedIn is set up where it was an old email. Make sure you're looking at your LinkedIn on a regular basis. All of these factors come into play when you're searching for a job. It's a very competitive market out there. So be confident that somebody's going to reach out to you, and you're going to be prepared for that. Okay, so we're going to open this up to questions at this point. And Angie, if you could let us know if there are any questions in the questions icon or the chat. Some people may put them in chat.
We had one question, Brian, earlier from Leedy. She was asking about the best background for video interviews. We had suggested maybe something neutral, but I don't know if you or Amanda would like to respond to that.
Sure, absolutely. There can be virtual. Some machines allow you to put in virtual backgrounds. Some do not. So if you do use a virtual background, it should be something generally a pleasing to the eye. It can be a background of an office setting that's existing. It could be you don't want something that's going to have a lot of activity and kind of distracting from you. If you can't set up a virtual background, maybe try setting up something, where you can just put up a solid color curtain or something that right behind you. I've seen people use trifold dividers for rooms where they put that behind them. So try to be creative. But if you can't put it in a place, make sure you're in a place where there's not too much light behind you so that they can't see your face, something that gives good reflective light. Anybody else have any input on that?
No, I think you hit the mark, but I did share on the chat that just doing a quick virtual backgrounds for an interview search on Google or anything like that would be helpful. But I think the most important thing is something that's not too distracting, and just understanding your audience. This is your first impression, so having something neutral in the beginning would be probably ideal.
That's very true. Very true. Very true. Thank you, Roberto. Cool. All right, we're going to go on to, if there's no more questions, any more questions?
Brian, there's a question in the questions tab. Liliana is asking, where should you look during a virtual interview? Directly into the camera, at the person on the screen, etc., which we, I think, are covering in the next section. So I can answer that for you in the next section, Liliana. And I think that should be it for questions.
Cool. Great. And you are up, Amanda.
Okay. Well, hi, everybody. Thank you for being here, and thank you, Brian, for that first piece. So I will cover the interview and closing the interview, and we'll also have Q&A between each of those sections. So the first thing I'll talk about is the actual interview itself, and, some tips and things that we recommend for that piece. The first is just be your authentic self versus a scripted presentation. What we mean by that is, don't have your exact answers, memorized in your head, because that will be very obvious to a recruiter or a hiring manager. So, come in with an idea of how you would answer certain questions, but be authentic, because it's very obvious if you're not being authentic. The next point is just greeting your interviewers, relaxing, smiling, letting your personality shine. Obviously video interviews are different from in-person interviews. So you do want to still make that good first impression. Regardless of who you're meeting with in the organization, it could be, a staff assistant who's talking to you before your interview, or it could be some senior level director. You want to give the same respect to each person that you speak with. But, just go into the interview, feeling like yourself and ready to, show your personality to the hiring team. And then this is going to touch on Liliana's question, but use the same tone and body language you would use in person. So, be natural. It's not necessarily natural to have interviews over video, so we understand that it's a little bit different than usual, but definitely do your best to be natural. When we say make eye contact, I would say look at the person's screen. I don't know, Brian or somebody else, if you have a different idea, but I think actually trying to make eye contact with the person through their screen is better. I don't know if you would agree with that, Brian, but...
Yeah, I think it's, a personal preference too. Sometimes, if you're looking right into the camera, you look a little bit kind of, overly focused, right? But, think of it as in a room. When you're in a room, you're looking around the room. And when I'm looking at the screen, I'm looking around the room. So, as long as you're not overly distracted and not, and if you have a situation, it's a good point, Amanda, if you have a situation where you can't be looking at the screen for some particular reason, let the interviewer know that. Say, I've got to look off screen for X, Y, and Z. Maybe it's something you have to do or the way your camera's set up. But yeah, I generally look at the screen, not at the camera. But if you want to look at the camera, just put a little tape something right next to the camera to remind you where it is. That might be helpful for you.
Yeah, exactly. And as long as, like Brian was saying, as long as you're focused on the screen, I think it's okay. And especially if you have, maybe 2 or 3 interviewers in the room at the same time, you're not necessarily going to be able to make eye contact with just one person. So just as long as you're engaged and staying focused, I think that's great, because it is different over video than in person, because you don't actually have the person sitting right in front of you. And then the other thing I wanted to point out is just focus on looking at the camera, which is kind of contradictory to what I just said. But, I would just say focus on the screen. Don't check your phone for texts or look at incoming emails. So, if you have multiple screens with your setup, make sure you're focused on the screen that the interviews on and that you're not looking off to the side, because that will make it appear that you're distracted. If, like Brian was just mentioning, if you do have to look to the side, just say, I apologize, I'm going to look off the screen to look at the job description or whatever you're looking at, just so they know that you're still engaged with the interview. It's really obvious when somebody is not paying attention on a video. So just be mindful of that. And then the last piece I wanted to touch on is just active listening. So this is a really big piece of the interview and something that I think is really important. You want to give yourself time to clearly think about your answer after an interviewer asks you a question. It's okay to take a few seconds to pause and actually formulate your thoughts, so you're not just spitting out whatever comes into your mind first. It's okay to do that, and interviewers appreciate that, actually. And avoid talking over the interviewer, so wait for the interviewer to finish asking their question. If they're explaining something to you, make sure they're done before you interrupt them or anything like that. And then if an interviewer asks you a question that you're not sure about, you can ask them to rephrase for clarity. That's perfectly fine. Sometimes questions can have multiple parts to them, so it's okay to ask for a rephrase, because you don't want to go through the process of answering a question that's not actually what the interviewer was asking.
There was something else I was thinking about in terms of interviews too. Many of you will be invited into informational interviews, or you may want to practice interviews. If you're on an informational interview with a hiring manager or a recruiter, you should treat it as a regular interview. You're learning about the job, and it may not be specific about a job, but you want to practice these same aspects in an informational interview versus an actual job interview. The difference is, for an informational, you're learning about the company, where you may fit, and what jobs to focus on versus a particular position.
The virtual setting improves in some ways some of the interview capabilities. You can have your resume handy. You can have a piece of paper with some notes that you want to take, or the job description. use the advantages of the virtual setting to be able to, I'm getting some feedback, to be able to your,
Absolutely. Thank you, Dick.
Okay.
Amanda, there was a question. Should we hold it until we get to the Q&A section? There was a question in the chat related to Lady asked the question whether or not it would be appropriate to ask the interviewer for them to pose their questions to you in the chat versus direct conversation. And I just started to type it an answer in the chat, but I thought I'd just pause and see if it made sense to talk about it in this forum.
I think we can talk about it. Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
Lady, do you want to elaborate on what it is that you're asking?
if there's an accommodation issue, it's always a good advantage to work with the person who may be helping or scheduling the interview so that you can address any accommodation issues that may be necessary. Lady, I'm not sure if that helps clarify it all, but certainly address and prepare for those needs that you may have or someone may have on the interview.
I don't know if it helps at all, but I would like to share a quick experience that I had. I'm not sure if it'll help Lady, and maybe she can clarify. So I know during a previous interview interaction that I had, similar to many of the things that many of the speakers were talking about, was pretty much feel free to acknowledge that it's a virtual interview and that it is a little awkward and things are happening. Similarly, I would be like, hey, just letting you know, if I'm not looking at you, I'm looking at my other screen where I have these notes. Because naturally, many of us, when we are in an in-person interview, we are writing notes, or we bring a little notebook, or we're down in a little piece of paper. So comparably, I would write it down myself as an example, and just be typing. And then when the time comes, let's say if it isn't brought up, or at the very end, it's just any questions? It's I do have those questions section here. Let me ask these questions. That was my experience. I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts about that, or any other experiences they'd like.
Well, I had a separate thought on the question. So I think it's a good opportunity to just show your communication skills and to build a rapport with the recruiter or the hiring manager. Most recruiters and hiring managers, we're trained to provide accommodations where necessary and to try and be as inclusive as possible. So in the beginning of the interview, it's just a matter of saying, hey, is it possible to share the questions in the chat as well? I wouldn't have a problem doing that for a candidate, especially if it helps them provide responses that are more aligned with what I'm actually trying to gather from them.
I would agree, and I do that sometimes. When we're a lot of times I have interviews or meet and greets with the candidate prior to the meeting with the hiring manager, as you would in a virtual setting, in a real setting. And one of the things I do is I share with them. They want to know, more about the benefits, from an HR perspective, because I asked them, do you have any HR related questions, which is a perfectly fine one to ask. And I'll send them links to the benefits, and I'll send them information where they can find it. And we actually have hiring managers that do visual presentations where they want candidates to respond. So they do put that in chat. Here's some information. We want you to come back with a case study or something similar to that. So I think it's perfectly a reasonable request to ask them to do so.
Yeah, I think that's great. Thank you to everybody who put in their input on that question. So the next piece I'll talk about is, the question, tell me about yourself. I think somebody in the chat put that question as the one they dread the most. So you can consider this a form of your elevator pitch. So your elevator pitch should be about 30 to 45 seconds, kind of highlighting your recent experience, skills that you have. So, as students, you can highlight, various internships you've had while you're in college, or you can say, I'm a senior graduating in 2021 with a degree in communications. And you can also describe what you're looking for. So you can say, like, you know, I'm looking for an entry level role in marketing and communications, and, you know, whatever that looks like for you. And, you know, just make it brief. It doesn't have to be a summary of everything you've done since you started working, you know, when you were 16 or whatever it is. I'm just talking about myself personally, but, you know, talk about the most relevant pieces of information for the person that you're speaking with. And then Brian,
Anybody else on the group have a recommendation for their favorite elevator pitch that they used that was successful for them? I used to be in a role where I was in a sales role, and it's kind of an elevator pitch because it's the same thing. It's you're marketing yourself as a candidate. And the one thing that I always heard from my peers that would give me some coaching was, you're just simply to talk about one particular thing. You're there not to talk about the whole company and what we do. You're just there to talk about the services that you're there to provide. So less is more, and you've probably heard this about resumes and writing and your educational experience, that when you're writing stories or papers, that less is more. So think about that. As Amanda said, it doesn't have to be the whole story, just something that's going to get the point across.
Yes, there's a such thing as overselling.
So what other questions do we have? Feel free to put more questions in chat. We'd love to hear your thoughts are, anything we can help you with.
We do have a question. This one is, what about privacy and HR do's and don'ts for compliance when considering information services and technology platforms, applications such as HRIS? How much intel is too much, and one reasonably could request questions in advance to prepare more like a normal person? And that one, I don't know if the person who prompted that in the chat, if you want to elaborate at all on your question, or even if you have the capabilities to do that. Do the participants have the ability to speak, or is it just, can they just chat?
I don't think they can speak.
Okay.
I believe it's just chat. I don't believe they have a mic.
Okay.
Yeah, can you just confirm?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I believe they can just chat as well.
Okay. So, Dick, you know, maybe you have some thoughts on this, or Sarah?
I'm trying to understand the question so that I can answer it accurately.
I believe it must be like a two-pronged question. Why don't we start with, what about privacy and HR do's and don'ts for compliance when considering like the technology platforms?
Sorry, apologies for interrupting. Laura just put in the chat that she has invited the person that asked the question to speak, so they should be able to.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Well, perhaps in the meantime, we have another question. Can you share some tips for standing out in a virtual environment? How do you make a good impression? Is body language a significant part of that?
Yes. I've participated in interviews in person and on virtual where the person is back here like this, or just kind of like this. You know, you certainly want to be present in the interview and personable, and obviously you want to make sure that the virtual environment we talked about, it's going to change. My virtual environment always looks like this. It's where I sit at home. Some people don't have that ability, but certainly be present in the interview. Be aware, focus on the interview. And then, that way you can easily tell if somebody's not. Anybody else have anything you want to add to?
I'd agree. To follow up with what you said, Brian, I would say treat yourself like you're actually in person with the interviewer. Just the old things like keep your posture correct, don't slouch in the chair. I think sometimes it can come off as you're uninterested if you're kind of kicked back, relaxing. I would just say pretend, even if you're in your home environment, that you're actually in the person's office. And just honestly, like Amanda stated earlier, be yourself, smile, be friendly, be welcoming to their questions, and just be your authentic self.
Thank you.
We have 2 additional questions that just came in. I'm going to read both of them. The first one is, how important is LinkedIn for students' professional development and or job search? And the second question is, what are the biggest challenges potential candidates face in today's virtual environment?
I can touch.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say I can touch on the LinkedIn one really quickly. So I went to Stonehill College in Easton, Massachusetts, and I've connected with a lot of current students there. But one reached out to me recently because he applied for a position at Harvard, and he just found me on LinkedIn because he saw that I'm from Stonehill, and he ended up getting a phone interview for the role. That's just the stage that we're at right now, but I think it's really important to stay engaged and connected on LinkedIn, especially with folks who are alums of your institution, because they have a lot of connections and can help you out. So I would definitely say it's really important, especially when you're in the midst of your job search, try to connect with as many people as possible. And, with all of us here today, we all have our LinkedIns in this presentation that we can send to you after, so you can connect with us there as well.
And just speaking personally, just my observation is sometimes people try to leverage LinkedIn when they're actually looking for a job, and that's probably the biggest mistake you could make. You want to cultivate your brand and build a relationship with your network over time. Folks say that it's not who you know, it's what, or not what. Yeah, the other way. But what I say is, it's really who knows you and who knows your work. Your network will always be out there providing opportunities for you, or people always want to know someone that knows something. So, for example, even with my personal journey, I was at Stony Brook University up to 2017. I started publishing some articles on LinkedIn so I could share some knowledge with folks. And that's how I ended up being recruited to Dartmouth. And then ultimately it led to my opportunity here at Harvard. I would have never explored any of those opportunities if it wasn't for LinkedIn, my presence. And I've been on LinkedIn since 2011. So I think it's really important for you to cultivate your presence. There's over almost 680 million professionals on that platform. It's continuing to grow. So, it's very important, and it's a great opportunity to connect with us. Clearly, we care about connecting with folks and having informational conversations and building a rapport with ALPFA. So now's the time to connect with us.
I'd like to also add that recruiters, if they're having open positions, they are posting them on LinkedIn, so it's a great place to find that information. It might be somewhere you hadn't thought about or a position you hadn't thought about, but it would be a perfect fit for you. So I would definitely expand your network, and there are a ton of classes right now, even on LinkedIn, that will teach you how to build a better LinkedIn account. So I would say if you search that on Google or however you search, that would also be very helpful.
Great. Thank you. And we're going to get back to the question about HR.
Art Patino, I think, is the one that has been invited to speak. He or she, has a second question that is, prior to the pandemic of 2020, the percentage for talent acquisition generation from online leads and virtual sources was rumored around 10%. How much still rests on word of mouth, personally developed leads, and community agencies such as Social Capital? And Arpatino, it would be great for you to come on to the microphone to expand a little bit about the questions that you have for us so we can accurately answer.
Angie, unfortunately, he's connected through a phone, so through a mobile device, so we're not able to add him and open his mic.
Okay.
Well, you can connect with us on LinkedIn, and we'll provide the responses on a later date.
Brian, do you mind if I answer his first question?
Absolutely, yes.
So if I'm reading this correctly, I hope I am. I hope my answer provides you some insight. I actually was recently on the job market. I've been with Harvard for 13 years, and I have been with Central now for a couple weeks, so not that long. So I was one of the people out there doing Zoom interviews. And I will say I interviewed at several different places, whether it be inside Harvard or external, and every single interview I had, and there was multiple, were all generated from connections I had made, not even just on LinkedIn, but from someone that I had interviewed with 5 years ago at another place that I had kept in touch with, and from friends that have left Harvard and gone external. So my personal connections, I relied upon extremely heavily to start my job search. And I truly think, and I believe one of the speakers earlier in the opening session said the same thing, that those connections are very important in your career, not even just to get you a new job or to go on to your next place of employment. But it's also just great to network, find out what other companies are doing and how different processes are happening there. It could give you some great innovative ideas to bring back to your own workplace.
If you send out 10 resumes in response to job openings that you see on the web and you make 2 phone calls, you're going to have more success with those 2 phone calls or Zoom conversations than you will with those 10 resumes you sent out. It has always been the case that people find jobs through networking, through contacts. That's why this networking piece is so important. And Zoom allows you to do it face-to-face much more easily than you could normally. There was a question on what kind of small talk can you start in an interview. I encourage people to always prepare and think about what the company does, or something that's maybe recently in the newspaper, or something about the job description, and reflect your interest, your knowledge in the conversation with the interviewer. Bring a story to that.
Thank you, Dick. And we're going to move on to the last slide for the sake of time. Amanda, you want to continue?
Yes, thank you. And thanks everyone for your questions. It's been great. So in terms of closing the interview, have questions prepared for your interviewers. So I would suggest having 2 to 3 questions for each interviewer that you speak with. And, you know, something to keep in mind is know your audience. So if you're interviewing with an HR person, you know, there might be certain questions you ask them versus the hiring team. Like, the HR person isn't necessarily going to know what you'll be doing on a day-to-day basis, or like what the team culture is like, because we're normally not embedded within the team. So just know your audience and know the types of questions you should be asking. And if you have any questions about that, you know, you can connect with us and ask those questions. Thank the interviewer for the opportunity. That's one of the biggest things that we're suggesting here, is thank them, you know, both while you're on the call with them, you know, when you're wrapping up, say thank you so much for the opportunity. You know, this position sounds great. I'm really interested. You know, enforce your interest in the role, but then also send a thank you email to the folks you met with. That can go a really, really long way. Interviewers and hiring teams really appreciate the extra effort that you put into sending a thank you email. So, you know, don't be afraid to ask the interviewers in the Zoom for their email. They can just share it over the chat, or if there's an HR person that you've been communicating with, you know, you can ask them for the emails of the folks you interviewed with. But definitely send an email. It makes a huge difference. And then also network with those you met and connect with them on LinkedIn. So don't be afraid to connect with them on LinkedIn, because you know, they could post something in the future that you see that you're interested in, and you've already met them, so you have that connection already. And then I think that should be it for, that slide. And then we just have opportunity for more questions. I don't think we have a ton of time, so but if you do have any questions, definitely feel free to put them on the questions tab.
I just wanted to jump in real quick. to share a couple of things because we can talk a lot, right? But unfortunately, we don't have much time. I did want to at least give a little glimpse of hope for folks that are on there. Like, we're talking about all these things, and like, how does that like work out? How does that pan out? How does networking look like? So, like, an example that thankfully got me in my position with the Harvard Chan School of Public Health was being able to connect with the HR recruiters at the School of Public Health, and that made the experience completely different. I applied for one position many months ago, and that's not the position I got. Right, we're talking about like that first connection that built another connection that built another connection to the point where I was speaking informally to some of the HR recruiters because at that point they already knew like the kind of person that they're trying to recruit for them, and which eventually led one of them to say, "Hey, Eduardo, I know it's been a couple of months, but here's a position that may actually fit your interests and such." And thankfully, that was the position that also worked out for me, and I'm very happy for. So that's just another example of how to actually apply yourself informally, formally, using like HR to your advantage and getting to know people. Because ultimately, if they get to know the type of person you are, and that is ultimately the place you want to be, and you know that, then they're going to find eventually a position for you that's available. And who knows, that may end up being the space that you end up working for later on.
Thank you, Eduardo. Looks like there's one more question in chat. And the question's no. Are we all set?
I think I had suggested to R. Patino that he contact us directly because he has a couple of additional questions that just came through, and I think our session is over. So I suggested that we could connect with him one-on-one to follow up to his outstanding questions.
Absolutely, and I'll have if you've sent me an email, I'll send you this slide. If we have another opportunity, I'll send it over to Carlos as well. I sent it to him earlier so that he can distribute it as well. But all of our contact information is on there, each of our email addresses and our LinkedIn profile. So we look forward to hearing from you and answering more questions. And thank you so much for joining our session today. We've enjoyed it. And good luck in your career search, and good luck at the rest of the sessions that you're going to be attending at the ALPFA Student Summit.
Thank you so much, Brian, and everyone.
Thank you.
For our attendees, we'll have a 12-minute break. We'll have our next section at 6:30. You can stay around in the tables, connect. Some of our speakers will be there. Other attendees will also be there. So feel free to start connecting and networking. Thank you again to Harvard University and to Brian, Roberto, Dick, Amanda, Eduardo, Angie, and Sarah for joining us today. This has been very informative for everyone, and I believe we'll put all of these things to practice.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care. Thank you.